Hello everyone, in this video we're going to be building off of the last one, which is visual script path, as well as, or also editor path to do the same thing, as well as visual script. But we're also going to cover object animation for changing the animation of the player in terms of emotion, for example the sad animation, or back to regular, or the sick animation, which only applies to the princess, which is a part of the game's lore, but you could have that as well when you drop princess object. And obviously, sad animation will look different for each skin, right? So in this game, there are multiple skins with multiple animations, including the default. So the default has its own sadness. This other skin has its own sad, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't check for, doesn't ask you for which skin, because whatever skin you have equipped, it'll just make it sad, make it happy, or make it whatever you want to choose. The general animation for that skin. So that's what object animation is for. But it doesn't work without a message dialog because it only works where there's a message dialog. The way why that is we don't want the emotion to happen the entire level. We only want it to change emotion in terms of animation, default, sad, or sick, which again, sick only applies to the princess. We only want that. Um, Again, in the future, it could apply to more animations, but as of now, that's how it is. We only want that to happen when we are speaking, right? So when we're speaking, that's when this object animation changes the emotion of the player. So you're always going to need a message dialog with it. And before we do that, we're just going to make our current visual script just look a little bit better. Using the sign function, it's now a lot faster. And no, you don't need to do the math manually, you just make it sign, you know. So as you can see, there's no effect unless you have a message dialog. So make sure that when you're using object animation, there is a message dialog to accompany it because that would make sense and that's how it works here. Um, or else you won't see output. So you just click on that and you add a new object. You click on, you go ahead and you edit it. We'll cover what VS Target Sequential ID is. It has to do with visual scripts being triggered by a message dialog. But here you have to give a name and a message. It tells you the minimum as well as it shows you the amount of characters you typed out of the maximum. So on the side is characters typed out of maximum, but when you don't type anything, it shows you that there's 3 characters per minute. Let's see, it gives us a nice text. It even gives us, there's even like a beep 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 sound that matches how the text is being shown. Yeah, so you'll quickly see how cool that is. You know, there's like a little beep beep sound as the text is playing. You can change the speed of each message, how long the pauses are between message. So I could add more messages and we'll easily get a nice whole dialogue that happens with the emotion, which in this case, we could make the player sad. Or if it was the princess, we could make her sick, but it's all triggered by the player, right? So you trigger the player can change the emotion of itself and other objects. And look, the message matches. I am in great despair, and boom, the player is sad. And now the first animation is triggered by that. So the way that whole ID setup is if they match, it's not the visual script happens before. It basically again doesn't matter which ID you set first. If they both match, then message dialog appears first, then the visual script happens first. So in this case, when we're doing this, the way it works is the moment that the message is done, then you go back from the beginning, you know. But we don't want that. That wouldn't make sense. Like imagine traveling to another place, getting a message, and then going backwards. That wouldn't make sense. Instead, you would want to use another visual script to continue the story. So I move there automatically at the start by placing the objects behind the player. Again, doesn't activate an editor. It activates as soon as you click play because it happens. It's directly at the position of the player, right? So you don't need to move your mouse, nothing. The player automatically starts moving when you click play because that's the first. But instead, you want the player to move to a place with the visual script and object animation so that when you close that message, it keeps moving more. So it's kind of like a chained reaction. So it's really nice. And that's pretty much all I have to explain here. So um, it's pretty self-explanatory. Maybe in the future people will create fandoms and wikis, but you know it's not too hard to understand. Again, with visual paths, you can make the line start anywhere. It's just when you move the visual path, the line will move relative to it. So with that said, enjoy the rest of this video. Um, I'm going to speed up the process of creating this little spiral that will happen right after the message dialog closes.